clip from the voice of Vancouver sports, TSN 1040.
Powered by BC Ram Dealers.
Home to Ram 1500, Canada's most fuel-efficient truck ever.
You know what? If you saw David Price looking up at the sky as it fell with rain and buckets of rain, and it looked a lot like Andy Dufresne after he escaped from Shawshank, you might be right, because there was a little redemption tonight for David Price. MLB.com's calling it stellar gutsy, whose start tonight, along with a couple of big home runs, secures Boston's trip to the World Series. It's their first American League pennant since 2013. By the way, I'm Rob Fay, along with Lou Filippo, Niall O'Donohoe, KP Wee. We've got Vancouver Canadians game day for the next 2 hours. But for all of the haters drinking the haterade, all of a sudden, David Price, in the game that the Red Sox needed him to show up, he did. Gentlemen, if this goes down as Dodgers-Red Sox, this is a television dream come true. You got two of the heritage brands, mano a mano in the World Series. But does David Price finally get the monkey off his back with this particular victory?
Well, you know, for a lot of athletes, once you get that one, it can just start to roll. And even though he didn't win the last game, his team did. And now he's actually come through with a good performance, good pitching performance. It could be the start of things for David Price. At that price tag, you hope it is. Not that I'm going to root for the Red Sox, but for David Price, this is a really, really good sign.
You know what? I'm still kind of I'm almost crying in my beer. I don't have a beer here in the studio, but if I had a beer, I would be crying in it.
We can get you one.
Well, yeah, I might have to. No, it just makes me think of David Price in the 2015 ALCS. His last start, as it turned out, things are going so well. Game 2, and looked like he was finally going to get that first victory. And well, we all know what happened. A fly ball that wasn't caught in right field between Ryan Goins and Jose Bautista, and it was kind of the beginning of the. I can't. No, I can't. I you know what? I still think the Blue Jays have a better team than the Royals. I don't care what anybody else says, and it just didn't happen. But anyway, yeah. As far as David Price, well, I'm not really happy for him. I'm with Lou. I'm not. But you know what?
You got to get emotion out of this, guys. If you and speaking of the emotionless, we'll get to KP Wee in a second, but I look at it like this. The early days.
Sorry, I'm just crying.
Okay. Yes. So for David Price, what it comes down to is, does he restore the faith in not just Red Sox Nation, but in his own ownership group, in his in his manager, in his teammates? KP, you look at one start. Can this change the entire complexion of how they look at David Price?
Absolutely, Rob. You look at the first game that he started in this series against Houston. Didn't actually do very well. It was on Sunday, I believe, he gave out like 4 runs in 5 innings. No, he didn't even go 5 innings in the second game. But the fans were cheering him on at Fenway. I was kind of surprised because I thought, he didn't pitch that well in the second game. But the fans gave him a standing ovation. But now, he pitched, 6 innings of 3-hit shutout baseball. I mean, this performance tonight, that's got to give him a bunch of confidence, as well as a fan base, management, ownership. So, I mean, this game for him was huge.
All right, so we look at the Boston Red Sox, who in the offseason decided to part ways with John Farrell. John Farrell had a lot of what this team currently is, with, of course, a couple of little parts that come, a couple of pieces that leave. But it gives teams that are on the cusp, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, it's not always teams that are down in the dumps that are going to look for a new manager. Sometimes you just need one guy that can come in with a different look, a different vibe, and Alex Cora has come in his first season and taken the Boston Red Sox to the World Series. Even if they don't win in the World Series, guys, here's a question that I think there's a lot of general managers are thinking right now. Culture change can take a team that is spinning their tires in the mud and all of a sudden get them back to the promised land. Do we start to see teams even above 500 start looking at changing owner or changing management just because now the precedent's been set at least a couple of times now in the past 5 or 6 years where you go out, you change your manager, and you can find your way right back to the World Series?
Well, it's happened in other sports. I mean, you look at the NFL is probably the best example of it, where you have coaches who make the playoffs every year but don't win, and eventually after a couple of years, they're gone. And if you have a team that, as an owner, you think is built to win, and they're not getting there, yeah, you're going to make those moves. I mean, we've seen it here in Vancouver when it comes to the hockey team. Alain Vigneault, really, really good coach. It missed the playoffs once.
But
Bye-bye.
that team was on the spiral. That team was on the downward incline. I mean, the Red Sox were a pretty good team last year. Forget the wins and losses. The pieces were all there. Alex Cora comes in, same personnel for the most part, and now all of a sudden they're in the World Series. Like I said, that on its own is an interesting conversation. But if you're a team right now that is sitting around like Minnesota, obviously they got rid of Paul Molitor because there are pieces there, but they just couldn't get over the hump. Is this going to become the norm where all of a sudden in the final lap of this big race, you can make a pit stop, change either your GM or your manager, and all of a sudden get into the winner's circle? I mean, you're starting to see enough cases where there's GMs around Major League Baseball. They're going to be like, you know what, screw it. I will go out and get a guy because maybe it is the manager and that missing piece that gets me to the promised land.
Dodgers. Who was their manager a couple of years ago? Who's their manager now? They've been making the playoffs year over year. Don Mattingly's gone.
Well, as far as managers being changed, I mean, let's not forget Alex Cora was a bench coach with the Houston Astros last year when they won the World Series. So who knows? I guess I know it's kind of a weird analogy, but I guess he kind of knew all about the Astros, the playbook, and really how to pitch these guys, how to defend against these guys, and maybe that's a factor that maybe wasn't given enough attention during this series. But as far as the managers go, yeah, you're seeing newer managers, like Aaron Boone, like Gabe Kapler, younger guys like that. Looks like the Blue Jays might be going in that direction, according to some of the names we've been hearing, except for perhaps Ed Sprague. That was a wild card entry for sure, but he has been managing in the collegiate ranks. He's now with the Oakland A's organization right now. But yeah, I think that's obviously something that maybe teams are looking at. That appears to be the trend right now.
Well, there are two parts to look at it. First of all, if it works out for one team, other teams are going to copy it. That's a fact. But the second thing to look at it is each year is different because you can't predict bounces that go this way, breaks that go that way, injuries that happen. I think we can sit back and look at last night's game where the Red Sox got a break because of that fan interference call. Some things like that do happen from year to year. Every year, some teams get a break. So we can sit here and argue that maybe Alex Cora was a big difference maker, or maybe they just got good bounces in this series. But teams around the league, around the majors, will copy a formula that seems to have worked.
There have been a couple of discrepancies in the postseason. One with a handful with Angel Hernandez behind the plate or on the bases. Joe West, Cowboy Joe, who's now back at center stage because of the call that many in Houston think should have gone a different way. I'm not going to get into Joe West, whether he was right or wrong. I think most of us who have seen that play realize that should have been a home run on a couple of different levels. But an interesting thing that is coming to the forefront right now is it time for Major League Baseball and those who operate their stadiums to put a barrier between the fans and the field of play. And I'm not talking about glass in hockey, but I am talking about 5 to 8 feet of space between the fence and the playing surface and where the fans engage. Because that's one of the beautiful things about baseball is you're right on top of the action. Like, you are right there. There's no sideline to look over. There's no glass to worry about. You are physically, if you're sitting in the cheap seats, you can lean over and catch yourself a home run ball. But now we're talking about millions of dollars. I mean, who's to say the Astros don't have that tide turn, or, the Dodgers catch a break, or whoever catches a break in certain scenarios? Do you see baseball going to that length where one day they might actually put a moat in between the players and the fans?
And some gators in there for good measure.
Well, I'm just saying.
For honest, no,
I mean,
just kidding.
think about how much that call changes that series and the millions of dollars that could go the other way. Like, the Astros could have more gates, more revenue, more merchandise. I mean, it's that call is a multi-million-dollar mistake that somebody sooner or later at Major League Baseball is going to scratch their head, put their finger up in the air and say, hey, I got an idea, and people are going to listen.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. Like, why they do not actually have them make the walls at a certain height so something like that cannot happen. Now you've got that yellow stripe across the wall. If it's a yellow stripe, it's a home run. No, make the wall high enough that the Mookie Betts of the world cannot leap up enough to actually get their glove over that yellow line into the stands outside of the field of
But
play.
see, you're taking away one of the sexiest plays in baseball. Like, you're taking away a guy that leaps up. Think Kevin Pillar, think Mike Trout, Andy Van Slyke, if you want to date yourself a little bit, who goes over and pulls it back, and the announcer goes nuts, and the crowd goes wild.
But that's been happening in Rogers Center in Toronto for the longest time because there's no seats behind the wall.
And I think remember back when the Metrodome was around. I think it's still around actually, but not for the Twins anymore.
The garbage bags, yeah.
But not just the garbage bags, but they actually, if I'm not mistaken, they did actually have plexiglass up above the fence. So that was one way to keep the fans from not interfering. I don't know if you maybe go to that extreme, or you raise the walls a little bit more, but yeah, you look at some of the famous plays in history. The home run ball in '96 with Jeffrey Meyer, was a Jeter who hit that one, and Tony Tarasco could only just watch Jeffrey Meyer rob him of what would have been a catch, and of course the famous one between the Jays and the Royals. Was it a home run? Was it not a home run? And it's just.
Well, it went
just
off
one of
the
those
fence
things.
and bounced over.
Yeah, I don't know. That sticks in my craw.
Even Pesky's pull down in Boston. I mean, that's a really, really short fence,
Yes.
and you constantly see the fielders going halfway
Yep.
into the stands,
and in
chasing a ball.
Anaheim as well,
Yeah.
the low wall. I think Dodger Stadium too. So I mean, they got low walls in certain parks as well. So I don't know. I guess, yeah, you hate to see playoff games decided that way.
Well, you gotta have absolutely you hate to see playoff games decided that way, but you don't want to take away that amazing catch that the center fielder is gonna make, or the outfielder is gonna make, reaching over that fence to pull it back and rob the hitter of a home run, because that's one of the most exciting plays you can ever have. It's just either way, I'm just, I guess, disappointed, like all of you guys are, that call was made, the improper way, and I guess Boston moves on because of that.
Well, you don't want to take it away from Boston merit-wise. They've earned it. They're on the way to the World Series. But again, Jose Altuve is going to play that over and over and over in his head, as are fans of the Astros for years to come. Now, Kate Upton, of course, the wife of Justin Verlander, lucky guy,
Yes.
has been pretty active on Twitter as far as, her support of not only her husband, but the Astros. Then she got engaged on Twitter when it came to that particular play, to which many a Boston fan took their millions and millions of shots at her because, first of all, don't get in a Boston fans' way during the postseason because they're going to come right back at you. So my question to you, and I'm not going to get into how brutal some of the tweets got because they went well past what they should have.
Yeah, typical Boston.
Well, the problem is you hide behind anonymity and you get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But instead of getting to that, I'd rather just say, if you are the significant other of a major league player or any sport, if you're the wife or the husband of a professional athlete and you dip your toe into that water, are you fair game?
Well, you're fair game in terms of having a response that is reasonable, like anything else. I mean, you fire off a tweet, Rob, and someone's got a chair there going in the background. But if you fire off a tweet, you expect kind of responses that are going to actually address what you're talking about, not just name calling. So I mean, what she sent off right off the bat, she was right on the ball. I mean, she
wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong at all. The commissioner of baseball, if you ask me right now, better job than them. And then, of course, once you engage the fan, and we saw this, of course, here locally with what's his name, Mike Matheson. I mean, anytime you engage a fan and give the anonymity, all kinds of ugly stuff can
without
happen.
steering too far away from where I want to go, should spouses just stay out of it, or should they get involved? And the reason that I say this is because it's a lose-lose proposition from where I stand. Forget Kate Upton. Just let's put significant other insert here. So here you are, your husband's pitching, or your wife is playing hockey or basketball or whatever the sport is, and you decide to chime in on something controversial. if I'm the athlete and I see that my wife is starting to pop off on Twitter, be she right or be she wrong, it's just heat that I don't need. I mean, sure, you want to come out there and say your two bits, and she's got absolutely, unequivocally every right to do so. But from the player's perspective, is it not just added attention? I mean, they got enough pressure going on already with trying to win a game to get to the World Series. Do you really want your partner going on social media and just being that lightning rod?
Yeah, I agree. It is a lose-lose situation. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if this was utopia and Twitter was, a place where you could always have reasonable discourse, but we all know that is definitely not the case. Anytime, really, you voice an opinion, if somebody doesn't like it, they'll let you know and let you know where to go and how to get there in no short order. So, yeah, I mean, really, it's lose-lose. I mean, yeah, you can see the spouse wanting to stand up for her man, but in the end, it really doesn't do anything. It doesn't really solve anything. It doesn't, resolve anything.
All right, we've talked enough about the Boston series. They're off to the World Series. Looks like they will meet the Dodgers unless something staggering happens with the Milwaukee Brewers. I had a chance to see the Brewers down at Coors Field when they were in the divisional series taking on the Colorado Rockies, and I said to myself, boy, that bullpen is a nasty piece of business. There's a couple of good bullpens that could fall by the wayside before we get to the World Series. I thought the Yankees had a good bullpen. If the Brewers don't get through, that's another tremendous bullpen that falls by the wayside. But KP, I'll start with you. I look at the Dodgers right now. They were built for this moment. They're a game away from making a return trip to the World Series. Milwaukee is one of these organizations that is built in pockets. They try to beat you like patchwork. They've got a decent bullpen. They've got a decent rotation. Nothing staggering. They are just a bunch of B or B minuses that collectively hope to get hot at the right time, which they did. I think they won, 11 in a row before they finally lost. I look at baseball and I say, if I'm a fan right now, am I missing Cinderella? Am I tired of seeing the big names get through? I mean, realistically, name the last Cinderella to win a World Series. Because right now, if you told me that it was going to be the Red Sox and the Dodgers, it's going to be Machado and it's going to be the Red Sox, as great as it is for the big market teams, KP, I'm sitting here saying to myself, meh.
I'm guessing the last time the small market team that I remember will be the Minnesota Twins in '91. But
Casey.
Yeah, but
right.
even the Marlins, but they kind of overpaid for a lot of that talent to they kind of disassembled that ball club afterwards. But Milwaukee's still in this. Don't count them out. They have Game 6 at home, Game 7 at home if necessary. But wouldn't surprise me if the Brewers were to win those two games and advance to the series against Boston. I mean, that bullpen, has, for the most part, done the job, during that lengthy 11-game winning streak. I think, if you are a fan, just you have no rooting interest and you're a fan of the underdog team, I'm sure that you'll be rooting for the Brewers, the next couple of games.
I honestly don't see them coming back against Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers really, if you think about where the Dodgers were on June 1st, and we're actually talking about them being in the playoffs, everyone's back.
Yeah, they were, 10 games below 500
everyone's
at one
back.
Point?
Yeah. We talked about David Price. Clayton Kershaw, Game 5?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You don't want a Clayton Kershaw who is confident and hot pitching against you. Period. If he is, he's the best pitcher in the majors. So I don't see it. Now, it'd be lovely if it happened because I do like the idea of rooting for the small market team, especially against the evil empires of like Boston and stuff like that. But, I mean, eventually talent wins out, and the Dodgers have a whole lot of talent.
If you're the Dodgers, do you give Vin Scully a World Series ring if you win it?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, I would think so.
I know he's a year and a half removed.
I think you bring him back.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to trot Vin Scully out for
of
Game
course.
1 and Game 3, and the crowd will go all bananas. But do you give him a ring?
Oh, yeah. I think
We
so.
have to.
You don't have to, KP. I'm just saying it'd be a nice
yeah,
gesture.
I think so.
think you give him a ring.
so. But I agree with Lou that I think the Dodgers are going to go through to the World Series. The Brewers, by the way, winning 12 in a row, and I remember the 12th because everybody got a free burger in Wisconsin at some restaurant. So that's how I remember it. But
Wisconsin cheese.
As great as the Brewers bullpen is, the one thing I was concerned about was they were going to get worn down to the nub, and I think you're kind of seeing that now. Jeremy Jeffress, he's not as effective as he was. Corbin Burns has had a couple of rough outings. Junior Guerra, I mean, he really put in a workmanlike effort and was one pitch from getting out of that 13th inning before giving up that 2-out hit. But I don't know. I kind of think the Brewers are running out of gas. And what about that move to start Wade Miley Game 5, and then he's going to come back for Game 6, even though it was only a one batter start?
I still don't 100% get that.
I actually start to wonder if Craig Counsell is like outmanaging himself.
Yeah.
Playing
himself.
He's got the talent there that obviously got him there during the regular season, and you almost wonder if maybe he's overthinking it, and literally just outmanaging himself.
And what's not helping is Christian Yelich. His bat is dried up completely. Yeah. I think Ryan Braun's pretty much been the only one who's been hitting. Lorenzo Cain, Mike Moustakas, who are big reasons why the Royals won the World Series in 2015. They were hoping to maybe repeat that magic, but it hasn't been happening for them. So I don't know. I really don't see the Brewers coming back.
All right, we got to take our first break here. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays because they are obviously trying to dwindle down a unique list of managerial candidates. Apparently, it's down to the final 5, quote unquote, if you're reading through the blogs and all those guys that know from their basements. But some interesting names that have come through, and that's not a shot at you, just so you know over there. Blogger from the basement. Rocco Baldelli, Brandon Hyde, David Bell. It reminds me of the movie Major League when all of a sudden they got handed the lists at the table. Who the hell are these guys? I don't get it. To me, there's some obvious choices that aren't even on this list. We'll get to that on the other side of the break. Nilo Donahoe, Lou Filippo, KP Wee, Rob Fay, all in the basement of the TSN 1040 studio. Back with segment 2 after this. All right, we're going to get into the Blue Jays in just a second. KP Wee, Nilo Donahoe, Lou Filippo still eating the licorice all sorts. I'm not going to lie. I had a couple of those, Lou. I can't listen to you eat those. It's going to drive me crazy. All right, so here's the deal. Are you guys voting this weekend? I don't like getting into politics, but are you guys going to fire in a vote this weekend?
I always vote.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm hearing some, gutsy things coming out. Who's the lady that says she's going to take all the bike lanes away? She's got my vote, and I don't even live in this jurisdiction. Can you imagine? What did she come out with? And I'm just going to paraphrase here. She's like, screw this lane. I'm going to open up this bridge, and we're getting back to the way it was in the 50s.
She actually said she would remove the redundant bike lanes, which is only about 50% of them.
So. And she's going to leave the viaducts as well?
Yeah.
So in other words, she's like, screw it. We're going back to 95.
Yeah.
She's got my vote, man. I'm sorry. Nobody. Who's the other guy that had one of his henchmen call one of the other candidates? Hey, take your stuff. Could you imagine that becoming public? Like, you're one of the guys that's working for the guy that's trying to become the mayor of Vancouver, and all of a sudden he's like, God, this other candidate, he's all over me, man. Can you do me a favor? Yeah, whatever you want. Can you, just put in a call and give him a little, he's like, I'll do my best. I'll be right back. And then he calls the regular guy. He just seems like a regular Joe, and he's like, heard you've been talking some crap about my guy. You're in big trouble. Oh, mister, is it true or not? Just take it down. It was almost like Tiger's message to, one of his mistresses. Hey, can you take that down? Be huge. Where are we? It's Vancouver politics, and yet we've got all this stuff going on. I've never been so enamored by the upcoming vote. Ever. Except for remember when it was Jim Brown and then there was this random candidate that showed up named James Brown or something like that? And so people voted for James thinking that it was Jim, and he ended up losing the election because there was this 3% that ended up going for James Brown. Dude, I swear to God, Vancouver politics is awesome. And nobody talks about it on this station. I mean, Pratt goes on about the bike lanes and stuff, but to me, I would love to bring some of those candidates in here. Maybe next Friday we should do it. What do you think?
Well, the election's on Saturday, Rob, so it's...
So what, we're 5 days late?
Yeah.
You know what you could do is bring all the losers in and be like, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't have made that call. Anyways, I don't know. I swear to God, I would love to do that once in my life. Put in the hitman phone call to somebody. Hello? You made my pizza wrong. We'll just bring it back. We'll get you a new one. It's not good enough. I want more. Well, sir, I'm not allowed to do more. My boss isn't working tonight. I'll be down there in 5 minutes. Mister, I have your number on call display. I'm just going to call the cops. I'll be right back. Like, I don't even know what to say. The guy called a hit, like a goon call, to one of the other candidates in the upcoming election. I mean, we should do that tonight. Corey, do we have the capabilities to call somebody and, like, crank them and, like, just, be like, we should crank call the lady that wants to get rid of the bike lanes.
Jeez.
I want to keep my job, Rob.
I'm
It's 9:35. What time does the morning team wake up?
Kurt usually rolls it around 4. I'm sure
Oh,
he's up like
that's
wrestling.
why you
There
get
you
to make the
go.
call for me.
He's
Why
up
did I say
wrestling
that?
raccoons at 2 a.m.
You imagine
so
Kurt Appleby calling the lady who wants to get rid of the bike
He's
lanes?
got to wake up in 5 hours anyway.
the old Ladner wake-up call.
Oh, my God. Hello?
Hey, I don't like the fact that you're taking all the bike lines away. How am I supposed to get to work?
Is this Kurt Appleby?
No,
It sounds a lot like Kurt Appleby.
no.
Well, who is it then?
Paul Rubens.
Pee Wee Herman?
I gotta go.
Anyways, okay, all right, we got to get to the poor Kurt. All right, so Toronto Blue Jays apparently are narrowing, great segue, are narrowing their candidacy of the next manager down to the brass tacks. We're down to like the 5 or 6. And I've seen the list, and I'm confused. I don't understand who half of these guys are. I mean, I know who they are, but why would they be considered? Now, Joe Espada, he's on that list. You've got, I mean, Eric Wedge has to be on the list. He's technically not, but I mean, he's got to be. But I mean, the names that are here, Rocco Baldelli, the Major League Field Coordinator for the Rays, David Bell of the Giants, who's their farm director, Brandon Hyde, a Cubs bench coach. This coming from Bluebird Banter. It's one of the blogs that follows the Blue Jays pretty closely, and they do a pretty good job. But I'm looking at this list thinking, what are we talking about here? I mean, I'm not on the Stubby train. I'm not quite 100% all in on Stubby Clapp. I mean, congrats, you've won 2 PCL titles. And I don't think John Schneider will get the job. After a couple of weeks ago, I thought he might be in serious consideration. But these guys, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's really no rhyme or reason. Are they just bringing guys through before they give it to Eric Wedge? Are they trying to make this look like it was an extensive search before they give it to the guy that's got the Cleveland tie, that's been toiling around in the minors for the last 3 years, that legitimately probably deserves a shot?
Yeah, it's quite the conspiracy theory, isn't it? Because you see these candidates, they don't have any Cleveland ties, but of course there's still Eric Wedge lurking in the weeds. And from what the Blue Jays have been saying, I guess they want a manager who's going to be more in tune with what's going on in the farm. So maybe that's why you see a guy like David Bell, who's working in the Giants system right now. Rocco Baldelli, of course, he was a promising major league player before health concerns kind of short-circuited his career. I mean, some interesting names. Ed Sprague, who we just mentioned earlier, former Blue Jay, of course, one of the heroes of the 1992 World Series with that pinch hit home run to really save the Blue Jays bacon and really got them on the board in the World Series. That's an interest. That was really right out of left field. I'm also kind of wondering why John McDonald, why his name hasn't gotten more play. I thought for sure maybe he might get a call.
Do you call him the prime minister if he gets a job? Anyways.
Not nowadays. You don't. No, okay. Not nowadays.
So, all right. So, is it a smokescreen?
I sometimes wonder, because you look at the resumes of these people that they've thrown out, and you kind of sit there and go, that's kind of interesting. And you almost wonder if they're setting themselves up to, quote-unquote, make an enlightened choice. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, wow, did they hit a home run. It's almost like when you first started seeing the analytics people enter baseball. Where it's like, they're hiring a GM who's 28 years old. And then everyone's doing it, but only one team really hit the home run. And I don't get this, at least not for this market. But maybe they're just trying to look smarter than they actually are, where it's like, we're going to get this guy who is very, very enlightened and has all this and hope it works out. And if it does, wow, they're going to look really, really good. I don't think it's going to work out.
Well, I mean, the teams are always looking for, guys that work with youngsters, perhaps, the guys that Robbie mentioned, whether it's Rocco Baldelli or David Bell. perhaps they have the reputation around the big leagues as, being able to work with young players, or perhaps, there's some intangibles about these guys that, we aren't aware of, but perhaps in the baseball circles, these names maybe they have some kind of experience in certain areas that appeal to this this management group. I mean, obviously in this market or in the Toronto market, these names are not big names or don't make any sense. But again, perhaps they do have some reputation. I'm guessing that where they know the young players, they know how to work with them.
Okay,
and
but
we'll see how.
KP, sorry, correct
Yes.
me if I'm wrong. Is this not the final hire that Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro get to make? I mean, the reality is if this doesn't go well, I mean, everybody knows in a rebuild. So we're not talking about a team that's going to, overachieve. But if in 3 years they're no further ahead, significantly further ahead, if they haven't moved that rock forward, I got to think that the next, person out the door is probably Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins.
Well, that's generally the way it works. I mean, they inherited John Gibbons, and they had the option to let him go, and a lot of people thought they were. And so this is their hire. I mean, if you want to tie analogies to other teams, I mean, you've seen it before where they inherit a coach and decide to keep him, and then, eventually if things go sideways, they get rid of the coach. They only get that one last chance to hire a coach, and then it's the GM that's gone.
But this is why I think I'm looking at the names and it doesn't make any sense to me, because if I'm the GM and I know that I'm in a rebuild with Baseball America's #1 prospect and, I'm going to go through some lean years, I'm really thinking about a guy that's going to save my job. I don't know if I want to, all of a sudden break the mold and go and get somebody off the beaten path. I want a guy that's going to preserve my job, a guy that has been there before, that has maybe gone through a rebuild. Eric Wedge, for me, seems so logical on a number of fronts. I mean, I know that the teams that he's inherited at the Major League level haven't necessarily been the type of rebuild that the Toronto Blue Jays are facing, but he's been there. And I don't want to use the 50-year-old adage of, maybe he's too old to help with a rebuild, but I just sit there, and if I'm looking at it from an executive's perspective, if I'm the GM, if I'm the president of this team, I don't know if Rocco Baldelli saves my job. I don't know if I want to gamble. You know what it's like, going to the roulette table and putting a chip on one number and hoping that ball falls into the slot. I'd much rather go with a guy who's a little more tried, tested, and true.
Well, before Joe Madden became Joe Madden, he was a bench coach with the Angels, and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time, they were known as, gave him a shot to be the manager, the field manager, and he's now like pretty much a legend. I mean, there are cases where guys that come out of nowhere, so like seemingly nowhere, do have some success working with young players or with a rebuilding team. Perhaps with this list of names, the Blue Jays see something in each one of these guys.
So you're saying that somewhere there's a Joe Madden in there?
Could be. You never know if you don't roll the dice.
Well, I mean, we've seen what the Yankees have been doing. I mean, I know Aaron Boone's come under a lot of fire despite the fact his team won 100 games. So how much of a difference does a manager make? I mean, you have to wonder. I mean, Gabe Kapler as well. I mean, his first week didn't go so well, but then the Phillies got better. They kind of came back to earth a little bit, but I think a team, if they hire, they're going to have to be patient with these guys and, realize there are probably going to be some growing pains. But I was just kind of wondering about Joe Espada. I was wondering if there was any relation to Jose Espada, who pitched for the Vancouver Canadians last couple of years. They're both from Puerto Rico, but I don't know if there's any relation there whatsoever. But I don't know. Out of all the candidates so far, I would probably say Espada. Excuse me.
Really?
I was trying to get through that frog. Yeah, I think, I don't know. Let's face it. I mean, the last Houston Astros bench coach worked out pretty well. I mean, you're looking at that for the Red Sox, and he does have that, that background to speak Spanish, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think that might be the way I'd be leaning if those are the guys that are right now the candidates.
Yeah, like if the names that have been thrown out, to me, he would be the most intriguing. I don't know if I'd still go there if I'm the Blue Jays, because Blue Jays are a unique situation. Because they are a Canadian team. But, I mean, really, he does have an impressive resume. I mean, it's not only just being a bench coach of the Astros. He was the coach of the Puerto Rican national team, and there's a lot of former Blue Jays who play for Puerto Rico as well. So there's a lot of links there. So maybe it's not that kind of red herring that we might think it is, and maybe he's really a serious candidate. I'd still like to see a name guy or a guy who's been deep in the organization for a long time.
Like, say, what, Mike Matheny or Paul Molitor?
No, they're not deep in the organization.
Roberto Alomar?
Possibly. Or, Eric Wedge, or, of course, we've spoken before about John Schneider.
I think Schneider makes the major league team next year. I don't know if it's his manager, but that's just me. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we'll pick up this conversation. Love to hear from you on any topic baseball. It's Vancouver Canadians game day. I know what you're thinking. We haven't had a game in Nat Bailey for a month and a half, but that's okay. We're going to broadcast this thing right through the World Series. So if you've got that baseball itch, we will help you scratch it. That is Lou Filippo, Niall O'Donohoe, KP Wee. I'm Rob Fay on TSN 1040. All right, we're going to go right till 11 o'clock. Yes, 11 o'clock, and that's okay. Canucks faltered tonight. They finally fell. Then it was a pretty good run for them overall. I mean, if you had 6 of your first 7 games on the road and you're a rebuilding team and you come home 500, I think you tip your cap to the boys, do you not?
Not if you're trying to get a good draft pick, you don't.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's what?
I mean, to bring your
lose to shoes Hughes?
Well, no, exactly. I mean, my attitude's always either you finish first or you finish last. They ain't going to finish first, and they're slowly working their way away from last.
Well, maybe they could be this year's Vegas Golden Knights.
It's good for the fans to sit there. It's good for the fans to sit there for a few weeks and say, "Oh, wow, yeah, we got a great team. We got a great team." And then eventually November and December hit, and it's like, "Oh, where did we get those points from?" Yeah, it looks good, but I don't think it does anything going forward for the team.
Well, it's a long season,
So what? You're up 3-2, and you're like, we gotta blow this one. Anders, take your blocker off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what you got to do.
No, you're gonna win. You're gonna win. You know what? In this day in the NHL, with all due respect, it doesn't matter if you finish dead last. You're still at the mercy of the lottery, and sure, you get a few more balls in the old hopper, and maybe you can pick first overall. I'm fine with Vancouver playing like hell and getting as many points as they can. And if they finish 5th, 7th, 9th from the bottom, who cares? They're going to get what they get. Am I wrong? What?
Well, I mean, if you translate that, if they finish 26th, 27th, 28th, I mean...
No, but who cares? I just, what I want to see? Good, entertaining hockey.
That's exactly it. And so far they have been. Obviously, it's hurt with Pedersen being out because he is far and away the most entertaining player on this team. Like he's got some moves. He's definitely got some moves. He plays fast and he dances a lot with those feet, with those skates.
I think a lot of Canuck fans don't know what to do with the skill set of Elias Pettersson because it's something
they've
haven't
never
had
seen
for
before.
So
No,
long.
exactly.
I mean, we've seen it before,
but not
in a few different incarnations,
not
but not
jersey.
Not a guy out of the gates that's what, $160, $165 that can do that. I mean, it is very intriguing, very impressive. And you know what? That is the bright light. Brock Besser was a bright light last year. They're going to be just fine. For me, I keep hanging my hat on the fact that Thatcher Demko is going to be a somebody someday. I really do believe it. But, interesting thing watching Corey Schneider in New Jersey. I'm sorry, I know it's a baseball show and we're going off on these wild tangents, but I don't think he's going to get his starting job back when he finally, he's 100% healthy. And it's amazing because he's going to be one of those guys, the Bob Osenza guy that,
Well, there's a name.
Well, no, the guy that could have always been and never just got over the hump and became the bona fide guy. Remember when Corey Schneider first started? I mean, outside of having to battle with Roberto Luongo for every, start that he could get, everybody said that this guy on half of the other teams in the NHL would be a bona fide starter and was going to be the guy. And he got his money, but he's never gotten over the hump. He's never become the guy. And I just sit here and I think if his career is now already on its decline, I think we overshot on what we thought Corey Schneider was going to be. Again, baseball guy talking about a hockey goaltender. But I sit here and I say, you know what? There's certain guys that live up to the hype, and there's certain guys that just trip on that last hurdle when they're just getting close to the ribbon of the finish line. And for me, that's Corey Schneider, a guy that could be, but just never really got there.
I think one of the things when you look at Corey Schneider is people kind of forget. I mean, because he was Luongo's backup, he was always the young goalie. He was never a young goalie. It's like Markstrom, you hear young goalie. No, he's not. Markstrom's like 27. Corey Schneider is 32.
Yep.
Now, generally, that's when they start to slide.
Yeah,
So
fair enough. All right, well, we'll pick up some more hockey talk on the other side. We will also circle back into baseball. And LeBron made his debut. We'll have to check in on that as well. That is KP Weed, Niall O'Donohoe, Lou Filippo on Rob Fay. Hour 2 of Vancouver Canadians Game Day, and your calls next right here on TSN 1040. You know what? I want to start Hour 2 off with coffees for everybody here. No, I'm just joking. Rob Fay, Niall O'Donohoe, Lou Filippo, KP Weed. This is Vancouver Canadians Game Day, powered by Booster Juice. I want to give something away. Corey Basso, are we okay to open up the phone lines here?
Yes, sir.
I think we should just give something away. I got a Vancouver Canadians prize pack, and we're just going to do this the old school way. You're going to come on, you're going to answer a little bit of trivia, and then where we go. I want somebody who actually wants to go see the Vancouver Canadians play their home opener next year. Ooh. All right, I got a 4-pack of tickets to the home opener, which you know is going to be sold out. But you've got to come on, and you've got to have a skill testing question. Fair enough? Are we willing to do that? I mean, you can't just win. You've actually got to come on and do a little bit of trivia. And I'll see if maybe I can even give 2 away. I want to give this just a second to marinate because I want to make sure we get calls. The lines are almost full, but I do have a couple left. Ooh, we're going to go to Vancouver. Usually we start in Abbotsford or the Burbs. But we're going to start here. We're going to go to Johnny in Vancouver. Johnny, good evening. How are you? Johnny, have I got you, fella?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. Now, I want to give you some trivia because I want to get the correct answer so I can give you 4 tickets to opening night for the Vancouver Canadians next year. Are you ready?
Okay, it's not trivia about Abbotsford or anything like that because you thought someone would be calling from the Fraser Valley, right?
I can give you Abbotsford trivia if you want.
No, definitely not. That's what I was asking.
Okay, fine. So what part of Vancouver are you from?
Kitsilano.
Very nice. You got that nice, deep, late-night radio voice. You steal my job here in a second. All right, here's a question for you.
If you're looking for a co-host, please, I'll give the phone number to your producer off the air.
Yeah, do that. All right. He just played the boing thing. I don't even know what that is. All right, here we go. Ready? I'm going to name a college football team. You give me the nickname of the school. All right?
Okay.
Here's the deal. You've got to answer 7 of them within 30 seconds.
Okay.
You think you can do it?
If it's like Big Ten schools, Notre Dame, stuff like that.
You don't get to pick. Come on, Johnny.
I know. I'm saying if it is.
Don't get smart. All right. Here we go. Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. On your mark, get set. Alabama.
Crimson Tide.
Clemson.
Tigers.
LSU.
Pass.
Okay. Georgia.
Bulldogs.
Florida.
Gators.
Kentucky.
Wildcats.
And one more, Texas A&M.
Aggies?
Yes. Congratulations, even with you passing.
What's LSU, Rob?
That's KP's family in the background, by the way, giving you the applause there.
Nice. Thank you.
All right.
LSU?
What's that?
Is it Tigers?
It's
LSU?
the Tigers. Yeah,
Oh.
I went back-to-back with Tigers just to see. The clue was Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker. I don't know if that would have helped you at all or not.
No, that would have helped, obviously, yeah. But did you say that? I didn't hear you.
No, you weren't listening. You were too busy
Okay.
thinking. I like that. That's okay. Don't swear on the air. We're trying to cut down on that around here. Just KP swears a lot, so we're trying to cut down on it. Johnny, congratulations. You're going to see the Vancouver Canadians next June 14th. Hold the line. Corey Bassel's going to take your number, and we'll definitely be in touch, Johnny. I like that voice. Hold tight. All right. So they're hard out. That was
June
a John
14th.
McKeechee hold. It is. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
All
food
right.
for thought. Little Freudian slip
There you go.
I think we should take one more caller.
All right.
I really do. The next person that calls in, I'm willing to give the exact same package. You got to remember, you got Christmas coming up. You got birthdays coming through. All you've got to do is call in. I mean, you got a skill testing question that's waiting for you, but I would love if somebody was to call in. But we're going to let we're going to let it just, is it maturate? I'm not even sure. But okay, let's go to the phones one last time. All right, fella. Oh, they hung up. Here we go. This guy's calling in. We're just going to go straight with my big fat fingers. How are you, fella? I got you on the air. You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Aaron, I'm from Vancouver.
Another Vancouverite. Who are you voting for in the upcoming election?
Kennedy.
Are you? The thug guy, right? Love it.
Yeah. When I was living in Burnaby, he was my MP.
And he was pretty good, was he?
And he was good.
All right. Okay, here we go. I'm going to give you Vancouver Canucks trivia. It's the easiest trivia question that you could possibly have. Ready to go? Don't cross your fingers. Just get the answer right. All right, here we go. Ready? Name the 2 goaltenders that the Vancouver Canucks currently have on the roster. Go.
Markstrom and Nilsson.
That easy. Congratulations. You're going to opening night. See, we wanted to give stuff away. Now, you know what? KP says that you should add Thatcher Demko as well.
Well, you can't count
Well, you
Markstrom
only
as a
asked for
goaltender
2. I
right
would have
now.
had the Demko up here.
You know, I'm going to give it to you anyway. KP's he's tough on people. But he's like, hey, wait a minute. That's not completely accurate. And then Lou said that Jacob Markstrom's not technically a goalie either. He's so negative. All right, so you're going. Congratulations. I hope your guy wins in the voting on, what is it, Saturday? You're going to vote on Saturday?
Going to vote on Saturday.
Attaboy. Hang with it. Corey's going to get your info, and I will see you opening night at Nat Bailey Stadium. Good man. All right, so there we go. Aaron from Vancouver. Where's all the suburb guys tonight? I like the guys out in the burbs.
Well, you know what yesterday was, right? All the guys in the
Really?
burbs are busy.
You can't get a hangover from weed, can you? Dude, I sound like a complete virgin when it comes to that stuff.
No,
It's not my thing.
The hangover occurs after you stop.
Really?
So
I
if
didn't know anything about that.
If you're still going, then you're not getting the hangovers.
To me, and I walked through a few pockets of the old stench today.
Yes.
Which doesn't really bother me. I know some people are like, I can't believe it. Now I got to walk downtown and smell all these little plumes of smoke. And I'm just like, dude, deal with it. It's not even that big a deal. I don't even smoke it. And I'm fine. KP, put that down, man. Like, just wait till the show's over, okay? Jesus. I'm just sitting here and I'm saying to myself, you know what? I miss the burbs. I miss when we got calls from Abbotsford, from Chilliwack, from Surrey. I got nothing. Remember the old Surrey Glaciers? I drove past the Stetson Bowl the other day. There was this team, like a independent league team, that played out of the Stetson Bowl for one season. They were called the Surrey Glaciers. No? Bueller?
No.
Nobody remembers the Surrey Glaciers? Do you remember the Vancouver Voodoo?
I do remember them, yes.
KP, you got to turn your mic on, buddy. The Vancouver Voodoo, you all remember that, right?
Yes.
It was roller hockey.
Roller hockey, yeah.
Tiger Williams.
Correct.
Name another player on that team. Exactly.
Bob Asenza? No, I don't know.
Hey-o, maybe. All right. All right. So anyway, dude, there's so many teams, like defunct teams. Somebody came up to me the other day and they said, what is the worst jersey in Vancouver Canucks or Vancouver sports history? The worst jersey of all the sports teams in Vancouver City history. And I would say that the Vancouver Voodoo is right there. I would say that it's up there.
For ugly?
For the worst of the worst.
I don't know, man. That's a cult classic. I love that.
Well, I mean, for all the guys on Main Street on their bicycles right now. It's a great shirt, but I'm just saying it's not one of.
They were made of that like terrible mesh material that like it breathed too much. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
and if you didn't wear a T-shirt under it, your nipples got completely chapped.
It was like an Electric Circus club shirt, more or less.
Don't bring up Electric Circus. You know that's a very soft spot for me. No, not having this.
Wow, yeah, actually just Googling some of the images now. Wow, that really was.
Of Electric Circus?
That was a very busy,
Voodoo?
very busy logo, to say the least.
I didn't mind the Ravens logo, the Vancouver Ravens.
Yeah, that wasn't bad, yeah.
The Canuck ones, I really didn't care for the flying V or whatever it was. But, I mean, I get it. It's
Well,
part
there
of
were the
Canuck
salmon
history.
ones, the third jersey with the red color.
Where the red bled into the blue?
That was
red.
awful.
Yeah, that
Was
one
that the
awful.
That
Rutu
was
jersey?
awful.
I think he's talking about the red that fades into the black.
Yeah,
I think it was 96 McGillney era
Yeah,
style.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
no,
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
I
Yep.
didn't think that one was that bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
The Grizzlies' original teal one, which is coming back and is wildly popular, is still not a good shirt. It's not. I mean, the nostalgist in me thinks it's a great shirt, but it's not a good look.
You like the white one better, or do you like the black?
I didn't
one?
like any. Okay,
The
so you
third one
remember
was
what
okay.
was it? 95 when the Grizzlies and Raptors came into the
Yes,
NBA.
that's right.
When the Raptors came out, even though I didn't like the dinosaur, I still liked the look, the red, the purple, the black. I was like, I'm all right with that. All right, Vancouver, what do you got? And they came out with the bronze and the teal, and I was just like, no, I don't want to be that team. And then they tried to freshen it up with a black jersey that said Vancouver on it. Still didn't do it for me. I was just never down with the Grizzlies look. But it's not the worst jersey. It's not. Canadians have had the beer can logo, which was not really a good look. I mean, they've had some crappy looks as well. I think every team's had one bum look. The Whitecaps, I mean, they came back and they branded perfectly. But I remember the old 86ers of the A-League.
Oh, yeah.
And they had some pretty meh jerseys.
Yeah.
And the Lions have had some. I don't like is it their current jersey? The Lions that have like the logo down at
In
the
the back,
bottom of the
yeah.
jersey.
Don't like it.
What is that called? The stamp on the back? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think that's the place where you put that logo myself, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
Guess we got to talk baseball here, apparently. All right, KP, where do you want to go? You want to start National League? You want to start American League? Where do you want to go?
National League.
Attaboy. Here's the deal. Dodgers, you were the only one that said that the Brewers are going through to the World Series.
They
Put
have
your
two
name.
home. They have 2 games left
No,
at home.
you said that they're going to go to the World Series.
Well,
I'm
I said that
holding you to
last week. I'm not going to change my mind.
Not even though they're down 3 games to 2 now?
Well, they have Game 6 at home with the home crowd cheering them on. They have Game 7 at home.
They had game 2 at home with the home crowd, too. Didn't work out so well.
They won the first game at home.
I think you guys should just fight.
Cage match.
That's why they play the game.
So, okay, the reason I ask this is because you have the potential for, and again, I'm going to bring this back to television. Somewhere Tom Mannix like, this is my gig. But I sit here and I say to myself, if it's the Red Sox and Dodgers, you can expect giant ratings.
Yep.
Oh,
If Milwaukee somehow gets through, how much does that affect television ratings by going from a heritage brand to, I guess, Cinderella?
Well, it's huge because you always talk about L.A. being a poor sports market, except really for one sport, which is baseball. So the Los Angeles market in California, the numbers they would bring to baseball are huge, especially the Dodgers. So it'd be a huge hit for MLB to, unfortunately have Milwaukee in there in place of the Dodgers, especially against Boston. I mean, those are 2 heritage brands.
Well, I can't disagree. I mean, I would like to see Milwaukee get through, but I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, absolutely. I think Boston Dodgers, I think that's going to be huge, and it's going to get so much media attention from everywhere around the globe. And yeah,
Nobody knows
I don't
who's
know.
on Milwaukee. They're kind of a faceless franchise right now. Like, people in Milwaukee know who they are. Everybody knows Christian Yelich and Ryan Braun, and they know the bullpen. But for the Tier 2 baseball fan in North America, I bet they couldn't name more than 2 players on that Milwaukee Brewers roster right now. Like, honest to God, they'll probably name Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich. And maybe, if they're even quasi-interested, they'll get a pitcher or 2. But that's it. And to me, if I'm trying to get my family engaged, because let's face it, if you're sitting at home, you've got to convince those who are around you to watch what you're watching if you want to watch it for more than 3 or 4 minutes before all of a sudden they go back to watch Guy Fieri for an hour, which eludes me. But I sit here and I say to myself, is it good for baseball to have some fresh meat in the World Series?
I think so.
Or do you want those heritage brands that will bring common folk eyes to the brand?
Yeah, I would like to see some fresh meat, as you put it. I mean, unlike the NBA where it's always Cleveland, Golden State these days. Yeah, you'd like to see something a little bit different. Heck, Boston's already won 3 World Series and probably going to win their 4th, if they do get through.
Wow,
Even though, God, I hope it doesn't happen, but...
Too late, man. You've put it out there.
I know I did. Well, I'm hoping kind of jinx them.
I mean,
anyway, I don't see, unless you really shine the spotlight on Bob Uecker and Bernie Brewer going down the slide all the time. I don't know. I don't know how you make that a sexy matchup, the Brewers versus the Dodgers.
I mean, you have your, David versus Goliath narrative if it's Milwaukee and Boston, right? But obviously MLB wants the numbers. I mean, and obviously, I mean, you haven't learned a lesson from the NFL. In the NFL, the lesson is parity. Every year, you look at what happens there, and you have multiple teams. It's like, didn't see that happening. And you have multiple teams going down the toilet. It's like, didn't expect that either. And that's the charm behind that, any given Sunday. And you hope that, I mean, you've got Milwaukee, that's kind of that interloper of the teams you expected to see. And you kind of hope there's more of that. But, eventually the dollars and the talent go in one direction. I mean, Christian Yelich, that's great. Came from Miami.
Yep.
The other guy went to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Which is generally
Mike Stanton,
where the players go.
Oh, sorry, Mike Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton.
Stanton.
I remember him playing when he was Mike Stanton.
Mike
But anyway,
Stanton,
Mike Stanton.
So somebody asked me the other day, they said, what is the most important to a Major League Baseball player? Is it going to a team that's competitive? Is it going to a good city with a good quality of life for your family? Or is it simply the money?
It's always about the money. Even when they say it's not about the money, it's always about the money.
So if you were going to get paid the Quan, as
Yes.
Rod Tidwell liked to call it, and Jerry Maguire, but you had to go to the dump of Major League Baseball, for example, Baltimore, are you going because they're going to offer you $10 to $15 million more than another team, or are you actually going to go somewhere where you can have the good quality of life or maybe even vie for a World Series?
Oh, Baltimore is actually a very lovely city as long as you stay indoors and away from the gunfire.
Yeah, but they're also 61 games out of first place in the East.
That's a bad team, though. I mean, every team goes through these cycles. I mean, I think the player wants to go somewhere where they can win at a reasonable, proximity to what they believe their full value is. But yeah, you're right. It's always going to be the money. You see this all the time. I mean, Eric Hosmer, where's he? He's
San Diego.
40 games.
Yeah, but San Diego's one of the most.
Well, yeah, but they're not contending
but
anytime soon.
they're a gazillion games out
so
of first place.
My answer to this
if
question,
it was quality of life, everybody would be playing for the Giants.
My answer was that you're split into 3 tiers of your existence as a pro athlete. If you're the guy that ends up getting to play, luckily, 10 years or beyond. Young, you want to go where the bright lights are, where the booze are, where you get your drinks paid for. The middle, you're looking for, the city. You've met your girl, you want to set her up, make sure she's okay, and then of course you want to get the money so that you can retire and your great grandkids can retire as well. I couldn't answer the question just as one and all because a 21-year-old and a 34-year-old are probably looking at that answer to that question completely differently.
Well, if you're a veteran who hasn't won a championship yet and you're down to your last, possibly your last contract, you probably want to sign with a contending team at a discount, so that you have a chance to win the World Series. Yeah, you're right. It does. It is in different tiers.
Okay, well let me answer that.
Sure.
Let's say you have a team that's on the cusp of a World Series and a team that's willing to offer you $12 million more to play for their team, but you're not going to get anywhere close to the playoffs.
Have I won a ring yet?
You have not won a ring yet.
And how old am I?
You're 33.
Well, I mean, I think with these athletes, they probably would go for the money because at 33, you think you're still young enough, and you still could. The money is important, and a few years down the road, you could win the World Series later on. It's
here's what I'm saying, KP. Not to cut you off, but I think you're making my point for me. Baseball is the one sport or a sport that is becoming more prominent where people don't care about the ring as much as they used to.
Nope.
There are certain sports where you will do whatever it takes to get a ring. You'll go and play for that bleeder team if they're going to get you a shot. I mean, hockey is still, in my mind, one of those sports where if you're a vet, you're going to say, you know what, I'll take a little less, I'll play within the cap, and I'll go get myself a ring because it cements my legacy. You don't hear that in baseball anymore. You don't hear people saying, you know what, I want to chase the ring. I want to be a World Series champion to cement my legacy. It's just not there anymore.
I think that's always been the case. I remember Gretzky, during his playing career, he was talking about how, if I remember correctly, that hockey players are there to win the cup, but baseball players are there to make the money. I remember that.
Yeah, but not always, because Paul Molitor, when he came to Toronto and was chasing his championship, he was at the hired guns that are trying to win that
Dave
one.
Stewart.
Yeah.
But I don't
Jack
know.
Morris.
You don't hear that anymore in baseball.
But they were also further along in their career where they were literally looking at just a few years left of playing. So it was their last crack at winning again. And winning, if you have won, those players who have won, it's a pretty good feeling. You don't see it so much in, say, you see it in the NBA now because you have these guys building these super teams. But no, you've never really seen it in baseball, at least not for 20, 25 years. They always go where the money is because it's an agent-driven league. And when you have the agents having that much power, and they don't have that kind of power in the other leagues because the other leagues have more controls over salary. In baseball, they don't.
But there's one other factor to consider is that since '95, there have been more teams eligible for the playoffs in baseball. Prior to that, it was harder to even get in. You had to win your division or you had to win your league to play in the World Series. But after '95 and with the recent addition of the second wild card, you get in, you get hot, or your team gets hot, you have a shot.
But I can't recall the last time I heard a player go somewhere and say, "I'm going here because I want to win."
You could make a case that Justin Verlander went to the Astros.
He accepted the trade.
No, but what I mean,
he didn't sign there. He accepted the trade
because he knew he was going to a team that was on the cusp.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying you don't hear that very often in baseball. But again, the question was, if you're just joining us, of these three things, which is most important to a pro athlete? Is it the money? Is it the location of the city that he's playing in? Or, what is it? Is it the legacy? It's those three things. Are you chasing the ring? Are you chasing the city? Or are you chasing the money? And I said that it had to do with where you are at your stage in the career. All right, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we're going to circle back. We'll very quickly recap what's happened so far. We'll set up the World Series. We know one of the two combatants, Boston, is off. They have knocked off the defending champs. There will be a new World Series champion this year. Half of this room not happy with that. But it will be the Dodgers or Milwaukee. We will break that down, albeit just very briefly. But we want to get to your calls, and we also want to get back into the Blue Jay chatter. There's a lot going on. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., as of last time I checked, was hitting over 600 in the Arizona Fall League. Like video game number. I mean, it's unbelievable. Can the hype be too much? Is it time for Vladdy to go to the major leagues? There's so many things we're going to get into. We'd love to have you join us on this show at 604-280-1040. You can text us at 104040. Our break starts now. On the other side, Vladdy chatter, Blue Jays chatter, your calls and more right here on TSN 1040. They are spraying champagne in the Red Sox clubhouse. They're off to the World Series. I'm Rob Fay. Welcome back to Vancouver Canadians Game Day, powered by Booster Juice, KP Wee, Niall O'Donohoe, and Lou Filippo joining me here. We'll take you right till 11, so we got about a half hour if you want to dial us up at 604-280-1040. You'd love to talk anything baseball. Heck, we'll talk any sport. If it's anything other than baseball, we'll just let you and Lou go back and forth. But I will start with this because it has been a story that has gone, well, gosh, more than a year now, about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his emergence as the number one prospect in all of minor league baseball. Forget just the Blue Jays organization. There is no prospect in baseball across the board that is more coveted than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who, as I mentioned earlier in the show, coming into their game tonight with the Arizona Fall team, which is, again, the best of each team on a couple of teams down in Arizona, was hitting right around 600 for his first week of the season. He was named the Arizona Fall League Player of the Week, obviously. But with him not in the lineup, Niall, apparently there were some other Blue Jay prospects who did not fare so well today.
Yeah, it was a tough day at the office for Nate Pearson, who we did get to see pitch here last year and was a big part of the Canadians Northwest League championship team from a year ago. He got lit up like a pinball machine at wind tilt, unfortunately, and you hate to see that, but as long as he's healthy, really, that's the key thing. But yeah, some ugly numbers today as the surprise Suarez, I believe that's how it's pronounced, losing to Mesa 18-2. And for Pearson, the pitching line pretty ugly, giving up 8 runs in 1 inning on 5 hits and 4 walks. Only one of those runs were unearned, so 7 earned runs in 1 inning. And but he did strike out the side, so that's one positive. But he did give up a home run.
I'm actually surprised he finished the inning.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out whether or not, I think he might have pitched into the second. I was trying to see on the box score if that's what's indicative if they did bring him back out for the second inning. But
it was certainly getting the ball over the plate.
But no, it looks like he was gone after the inning. Yeah, he was gone after. Hang on, top second. No, he did pitch. Yeah, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 batters. It looks like into the second inning before he finally got the hook. So
I mean, it isn't the instructional league. Let's
one
just,
of those things.
It's quite possible just working on pitches with him too, right? Let's work on this pitch. Let's work on that pitch. And
I never pitched professionally, but I can tell you this: after the 3rd or 4th run, you're done testing out pitches. You just want to get out of that damn inning. So I could imagine he probably brought his good stuff before that was all said and done, and that wasn't enough.
It certainly wasn't the good stuff he was bringing.
Well, he's bringing cock shots, for lack of a better phrase. You're getting 7 earnings. All right, KP, speaking of which, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's obviously a guy that the Blue Jays are going to bring into Major League camp next year. They're going to get him ready. He is now, with Josh Donaldson gone, the heir apparent to that position. The pressure on him, if they'd have brought him up this year, was the fact that Josh Donaldson's shadow was looming. Everybody said that he wasn't ready, but he has obviously secured himself as a guy that should be the opening day starter at third base for the Blue Jays come opening day. Am I wrong in that assessment?
Well, Rob, he's got nothing really left to prove in the minors. He's been hitting like all summer long. We've been talking about this whole thing where you can't keep him down. just because he was just destroying minor league pitching at each level that he was at. So I mean, it's a no-brainer. You got to have him on the opening day roster for sure. Even if he struggles during the spring, during spring training games, you got to give him a look because, like you said, Josh Donaldson is long gone. So the third base position is Guerrero's.
Well, let's face it, the Blue Jays have a lot of middle infield depth right now, which they're going to have to sort out somehow. There's been some talk, maybe do the Blue Jays perhaps trade Aledmus Diaz and make some room for guys like Brandon Drury, Richard Urania, among others. You also have Devin Travis in the mix. So I don't know. I mean, for the Blue Jays right now, they're not going to contend, and you hate to say it, and on merit, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. should be starting opening day for the Blue Jays in 2019, but it's sure looking like they are going to wait whatever it is 3-4 weeks before they get that extra year of control with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But as far as dealing with the hype, I mean, Guerrero Jr. has been dealing with it all year long. It all started really the last game of spring training in Montreal where he hit the walk-off home run, and and he had a tremendous year at Double-A and kept on going at Triple-A. And Arizona Fall League, the pitchers aren't having any luck with him either, as he's hitting well over 500. So, it's just going to be interesting to see what the Jays are going to do at third base while Vladdy is still in Buffalo, probably to start 2019.
I mean, all the numbers that he's put up have been unbelievably impressive. I think there's only one number the Jays are looking at, and that's dropping from 39,500 a game to 28,700 a game. Vlad is going to be there on opening day. They've got 11,000 seats to make up. So he'll be there on opening day.
All right, we want to go back to the phones. Maple Ridge checking in. Top Ridge wanting to talk a little playoff baseball. Gary, good evening. How are you, fella?
Rob, I'm fine. I didn't get to watch the baseball game, but because I was too busy working. But I'm a huge Boston Red Sox fan, by the way. I am a Mookie Betts fan as well. My problem is this: I saw the game yesterday, and I think that the Houston Astros got ripped off simply because. And follow me with this: the Mookie Betts jumps. His arm or his mitt is in the stands, and he misses the ball. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the ball is in the stands, not outside the stands where the fan is actually interfering with the player trying to catch it, but already in the first or maybe the first and a half row of stands, I consider that a home run, especially if he misses it. But in this case, they didn't. They called him out. And to me, wrong. It was controversial, a lot of controversy, and I was just wondering what you thought of it. Because, and by the way, Mookie Betts, in my opinion, is the best ball player in the East. He has never got a clean uniform, and I love it. I'd like to hear about it. Thanks.
It's Lou answering back on that, and yeah, it was wrong. It was a horrific call. And it's actually one of the reasons why a lot of us who absolutely can't stand the Red Sox really can't stand the Red Sox, because they do tend to get these calls over time and time and time again. Once that ball goes into the crowd, and Mookie Betts actually missed the ball. The ball bounced off his glove in the stands. But, hey, Joe West was the umpire and decided that, hey, you know what? We need Boston in the World Series. That's an out.
I'm not sure I can agree with that. Now, see,
he has a history with Boston.
I know, but if baseball didn't have a replay instituted, then maybe I'll listen to your conversation a little bit more. But the problem is they dropped the ball as well, no pun intended. I mean, you've got to, at the end of the day, get the play right.
Yep.
And I know that there's got to be definitive evidence and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, screw that. Get the play right.
Yeah.
Because you're in the postseason now in a game that could have changed the entire postseason, and they missed it. That, to me, is the challenge.
That game's over right there.
Yeah.
That game's over.
Well,
that game is over.
But, the point about Mookie Betts, hard to argue, and definitely probably going to be the MVP of the American League. I thought he made a tremendous defensive play last night on that bid for a double by Tony Kemp down the line, and he got to the ball so quickly. And look, Tony Kemp's no slowpoke, and he easily nailed him at second base. So Yeah, Mookie Betts is a tremendous player, and boy, a lot of teams are kicking themselves for missing out on him because it wasn't like this guy was a first-round pick either.
Well, the bottom line was the caller is right that was a blown call for sure. Should have been a home run, but I disagree with Lou saying that Boston has been getting getting all the calls over the years. They didn't get any calls in favor of them for 86 years. So,
they got lots of calls. They just happen to go through their legs.
It's only been recent in the last 20 years where they've started to win a bunch of World Series and I guess getting a little bit arrogant along the way. But yeah, definitely a blown call. It changed the complexion of the series as far as I'm concerned. Mookie Betts, great player.
You're going to hear about it all offseason that the officiating at the major league level is a little suspect. Now, this, of course, you talk about Angel, you talk about Joe, you talk about all these umpires. My problem is that now with baseball and the 18,000 different ways that you can watch a game on television, the scrutiny that these umpires are going to be under is going to be magnified more and more each year. The more cameras you put in the ballpark, the more chances you see the mistake front and center. Back in the old days when it was a 6 to 8 camera operation and some guy makes a call, that's how it is. That's how it ends. So my fear is that with all of the technology that we have, we can see if that ball's a strike before it hits the catcher's glove. And we can see it from every angle. All 360 of a baseball field is now covered. Baseball is going to have to answer the critics now, because the reality is you can't hide anything behind the curtain because it is there for everybody to see. So replay is either going to have to be enhanced, meaning that they're going to have to broaden what can be called by a coach or a manager in a dugout is, reviewable, or you may have to get to the point where you start to automate a certain part of that professional sport, because there is no hiding anymore. In tennis, for example, they now use technology to their advantage. An official at court level can actually see right from wrong. And I sit here and I say to myself, baseball, with the millions and millions of dollars that are on the line here for Houston, who doesn't get that call, knowing that they have the technology to get that call right, sooner or later, baseball as a sport is going to have to address that, because the reality is you can't leave it to Joe West to get everything right. But if you have the technology to assist him, you've got to be able to use that technology to its fullest, not just, if there's, unsubstantiated, over-the-top evidence that just absolutely says that he got it wrong. If he's even slightly wrong, you got to do everything you can to get it right.
I think one of the problems with this particular play, Angel Hernandez was a totally different thing. That was a series of really bad calls all in a row. They went to the replay. And while we're all sitting at home watching this going, oh, yeah, man, that's a home run, that's a home run, they somehow come back saying there's no evidence.
Because there's a rule when it comes to the home. There's the rule to overturning a call.
They need clear evidence.
But you just have to get it right.
Yeah.
See, the problem is Major League Baseball and the umpires union, they don't want to overstep. They don't want to, step on somebody's toes. He's an umpire. He's the guy. You have to step on their toes sometimes. When there's this much money at stake and this team's season at stake, you can't not be worried. You can't be worried about whether or not you're going to step on Joe West's toes. You just have to get the call right. And the problem is they have instant replay, but they can only use it for certain things. You've got to be able to go all in the postseason on a play, because they know they got it wrong, but the reality is they can't change it because it doesn't fall within the parameters of being able to change that call.
Well, you just have to wonder what the folks at MLB are looking at the replay booth. What angles do they have that we can't see at home? It looked, as Lou said, it was pretty obvious. I think everybody agrees it's pretty obvious that it should have been a home run and it wasn't. So I think they have to bear some of the blame too. But Joe West, he knows he has to make a call, and I guess he was just kind of leaving it up to the fates, the powers that be at MLB, and they backed him up on his call, and wind up costing the Astros a 2-run homer, and they still could very well have been playing, but I guess in the end, the better team won. Boston, you have to tip your hat to them. They walked into the home of the defending World Series champion and won 3 straight. So
3 in a row.
At the end of the day, Boston was the better team, but yeah, it's unfortunate for Houston. It shouldn't have come down to that, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I do agree in that sense that, it was a blown call, but I guess you have to accept that and move on and, overcome that to try and win the series. And I know, Rob, you said earlier that blown call wasn't the reason that the Astros ultimately lost the series. Boston, won it. They played better over the course of the 5 games. I guess in that situation, if you are a team that got the short end of the straw in terms of the call not going your way, you just got to bear down and try to get the big hit, get the key outs, and it just didn't happen for Houston.
Yeah, they got the big hit. It got taken away.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. Let's break here. We'll come back. The fan that interfered with that baseball got kicked out of the stadium. They escorted him with security in tow out of the stadium after he was a part of that play up against the fence. Could that fan turn around and sue the Astros in Major League Baseball? We'll take a break right here. I'll tell you why there's a case to be had. You're listening to Vancouver Canadians Game Day right here on TSN1040. Final segment of the show, guys. Let's talk about whatever you want. They came back with gripes of the season or gripes of the day. So we're going to go around the horn, and trust me, bear with me for this one. I'm going to start with you, Niall. Okay. What is your biggest gripe of the baseball season?
My biggest gripe, well, I guess it's a recent gripe. Baseball America, they're doing prospect lists for the leagues now, and pretty soon they're going to release the top 10 prospects for the American League East teams. That'll be out there next issue. But for the Northwest League, in its top 20, no Vancouver Canadians were listed, which really shocked me considering I thought Otto Lopez certainly deserved a mention. Josh Winkowski was Northwest League's pitcher of the year, but no mentions for them, and kind of surprising because overall they were the best team in the North Division, even though they didn't make the playoffs.
Lou?
Obviously, my biggest gripe is Boston having any level of success at all. But you know what? It really was not. My biggest gripe is nothing this year during the baseball season actually kind of jumped out and made me say, I'm engaged for something I haven't seen before. I mean, yeah, Boston had, their 108 wins. But, 3 other teams had 100 wins as well. There was no standout performance. I mean, Cy Young winners, who are they going to be this year? Maybe a guy who won 8 games and a guy who pitched 180 innings. There was no one that really, really stood out and was kind of like that, grab you player or anything like that. And I think that was too bad.
KP?
Well, I think the Red Sox, I mean, I grew up, loving the Red Sox, but I'm not a Boston fan at the moment. But I think, they won 108 games this season, but I think as the wins were piling up, I think the media was giving them too much hype, saying like they're the greatest Red Sox team ever or something along those lines, when, you can't judge a team on being the greatest until the season's finished. But along the way, you saw lots of those types of articles. Even last year with the Dodgers, when they won 104 games, whatever it was, it was like, is this the best team ever? I think a lot of I guess because of Twitter, social media these days, everybody's got their opinions. They're just talking, oh, this is the greatest ever. This is the best thing ever since ever. I think
sliced bread.
Yeah, so I think a lot of things are overhyped nowadays, and I think the Red Sox
could be the greatest Red Sox team ever because all the previous teams sucked.
Mine is PEDs. Okay. The fact that there are still baseball players that get busted for PEDs is my biggest gripe. Baseball is finally past that black cloud of that era, and yet there's always 1 or 2 guys at the minor league level that get caught for 50 or popped for 90 or whatever. You got to be an idiot to get caught in this day and age, and yet we still live amongst idiots. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Our final show of the season is next Friday.
Wow.
Next Friday, but at a regularly scheduled time, 7 to 9. That is KP Wee, Lou Filippo, Niall O'Donohoe. I'm Rob Fama. Thanks to Corey Basso as well. Vancouver Canadians Game Day on TSN.